There's quite a bit of things that you need from your suppliers, which we'll dive into today. So first of all, you need shipment data, which include sales orders, purchase orders, invoices, products, bills of materials, and suppliers. This is data that you should have already readily available. It might be data that you need to kind of streamline and organize in relation to EUDR, but it should be data that you have. Same for supply chain data. So regarding transport countries and steps, this might be somewhat more complicated if you don't have an existing ERP system, for example, but this should also be something that's not very hard to get an overview of. And then for origin data, it gets a bit more complicated because, for example, for plots, legality proof, and species, you might have to go to the producer itself, especially for plots and legality proof, because you don't know probably which plots exactly demarcate the plot where you get your products from, because you need to provide exact geolocation data there. For due diligence data, you need to have traceability, DDS references, and evidence bundles if the auditor ever knocks on your door. And then also you need all of this for compliance with Article 9, which is information requirements, and Article 10, which is the risk assessment.
So what can be really helpful here is sending a clear, standardized data request via email with exact fields and deadlines, and having this template which you can use again for multiple suppliers, adapting as necessary. And then following this with a WhatsApp or a WeChat message for quick clarifications and nudges. So those kind of ad hoc questions that suppliers might have. Hosting calls can be really helpful here, introducing the EUDR to your suppliers, running them through a call, so you can be there on demand to answer any questions, and highlighting these data collection techniques, which we'll go through a bit later. And in these kind of communication exchanges, sharing examples of GPS formats, permits, so suppliers know exactly what good looks like. And finally, what we've seen to be really useful for those who are not using a software tool is maybe providing a link where suppliers can upload all evidence they're going to send you. So for example, a Google or OneDrive link to EUDR portal. So every time they have geolocation data or a document to send you, rather than it getting lost in email chains, you send them this one link and they kind of upload everything to that one unified spot. So Canal Chocolate, our company, for example, began by sending a standardized request pack to all of their suppliers with the relevant template, checklist, and sample files, plus this aforementioned link, so the data could be standardized. So what we see here is often smallholders are relying on cooperatives. So an aggregator is collecting data for smallholders who will then act as that in between to pass on that data to you. And this is really kind of helpful to be aware of, and when you can kind of have your communications with the aggregator rather than trying to reach the smallholder themselves. But if you are working either with an aggregator or a smallholder, keeping requests simple and translated. With the rise of AI, Google Translate, this is kind of an easier task for us to do here. Determining the language and just translating those documents to make it that one step easier. And again, organizing this on the ground support is so helpful for suppliers to kind of kick them off. Canal Chocolate, again, simplified requests by asking only essentials in very clear language, and then offering calls to help with any technical requirements. So once you've started gathering the data, we might often see suppliers starting to engage with the process. They're sending you some parts of the data, but not everything. Often we've seen kind of suppliers send certification data, so that might be FSC data, and expecting that that will be compliant with everything EUDR requires. But clearly that's not the case. And how to deal with this, the best solution we've seen is reviewing the data exactly and very thoroughly and determining exactly what's missing. So maybe marking with a highlighter or a red dot exactly where the data is missing, and then asking suppliers only to resend that specific data rather than doing the whole thing again. I think emphasizing the regulatory obligation here is very important. Give it a sense of urgency of why you need this data, but also give them the support to provide you with the data. So, gather this sense of urgency, but also give your support to help them through it. And yeah, clear deadlines, explaining what you need and by when is very helpful to kind of make it more logical and clear in their minds. And finally, kind of, again, explaining that any missing data blocks their own trade into the EU once the legislation is implemented in December and then the penalties implemented in June. You fundamentally cannot do business with suppliers who are not providing you such data.